You know, Spider-Man, I've been thinking about just leaving crime and turning over a new leaf. And I can tell you don't believe me, Spider-Man.
Alright, Kingpin. What makes you so sure about that?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another average review. The Spider-Man review week is coming to an end now, and we're ending it off with a bit of an unexpected choice. The Toybiz Magnetic Spider-Man from their Spider-Man toy line. Although this is mostly reused from the Spider-Man Classics, Series 1 Spider-Man, which was pretty much the first ever Marvel Legends, so I think he sort of fits. Before I get into the review, I just want to say that the 2-year anniversary of the Average Review series is coming up on Saturday, the 28th. So if anyone watching this has questions about just the action figure hobby in general and my experiences with it, then leave them in the comments and I'll answer them in that video right on the 28th. But enough about series anniversaries and some arbitrary review week. Let's talk about the figure you clicked on this video for. The head is one of the few new pieces on this figure, but also one of the most unique. It's based on the artwork of comic artist Humberto Ramos. I've done research on how to pronounce it, but if I still got it wrong, please do correct me. His art is very cartoonish and unrealistic, and personally, it's not my thing for a Spider-Man artist, but I won't deny that it has some charm, and Toybiz did a great job of replicating the asymmetrical look of Spidey's mask in some of Humberto's art. Also, he's got a pretty good side profile for a Spidey. Moving down in the torso is reused from the original Spider-Man Classics, although with a bit of comic book shading on it, which differentiates it from the original release. You can also see some of this on the lower torso, and also on the back with a really nice sculpted back spider. The shoulders and upper arms are new since the original Spidey Classic Spider-Man didn't have this bicep swivel. Now there's some problems with this though. Original Spidey Classics, you can see on the forearm, pinless. This one has a pin. Also, for some reason, the red is a lot darker on the elbows and upper arms compared to the shoulders and forearms, which looks really weird. I'd also like to mention he's got 2 new hands. This completely flat slap one, and this more wall-crawling hand, which I do like. Now, the legs are also reused from the Spidey Classics, but they've been giving more noticeable shading than the rest of the figure. I liked it on, the upper torso and stuff, but it's a lot more noticeable and, in my opinion, less well done on the legs since it's just so obvious. I mean, look at this. It kind of reminds me of when Hasbro does shell-shaded figures in some of their more recent animated lines, like their Spidey animated figures or VHS X-Men line. He's got some fairly normal-looking boots and feet, but he's got magnets on the bottom of them. Unfortunately, I'm missing one magnet, so you can just see a big hole in Spidey's feet. Now, these magnets actually are an interesting way of representing Spidey's wall-crawling abilities. How can you use it? Well, he does have a display base that he can use his magnetic feet with, but also, you can also stick this guy to your fridge. I mean, technically you can stick other Spidey figures to your fridge, but they won't stay, they'll just fall to their death. That one sucked though, so we won't mourn his loss. Now let's move on to the articulation on this guy. He doesn't have any kind of dumbbell in the neck or swivel ball. He just kind of got a ball, but he can look up a fair amount and also get some wobble around. He doesn't really get side to side on the head, but the neck does allow him rotation around and also can assist in looking up and wobbling around. He's got shoulders that can spin around and raise really high. I mean, look at that. New to the Spidey Classics body, at least with this color scheme, is bicep swivel though, although he still retains the double jointed elbows and swivel at the forearm instead of the wrist,
But hey, still hinges forward and back. Now, the original Spidey Classics had the middle and index finger be articulated so that you could get the classic Spidey thwip pose. This one has all 4 fingers articulated so that you can do that or that. And the other hand, you can get it into a sort of fist. You know what? Maybe articulated fingers weren't the best idea in retrospect. Well, unless you've got the individual fingers articulated like face-off Cap. But moving down, he's got a diaphragm joint in the torso. He can bend forward, backwards, tilt side to side, and honestly not get that much swivel, but he's got a cut at the waist, which does allow him to twist around. He's got ball-jointed hips with a very high kick and a spectacular split. I mean, look at that. He's got rotation because of his thigh cut, double-jointed knees with, again, a great bend, boot cut, and feet that can swivel back and forward along with a bend at the toe. But hey, we know how this guy moves, so let's see how he looks next to other figures. Starting off with the standard male and female body molds for this channel, Renew Your Vows Spider-Man and Spinneret, and wow! Look at that Renew Your Vows Spidey next to this guy. That is a little under 20 years of action figure evolution. I mean, seriously. At the same time, there's so much improvement, and yet so little has changed at the end of the day. For 2 other Spideys, though, we have the No Way Home Final Swing Spidey on the left, and the Ultimate Spidey from the Vulture 2-pack on the right. And hey, here he is with the Spider-Man from the Toybiz Urban Legends box set. This is the guy that fell from the fridge earlier. Unfortunately, he survived. It's crazy that this body was made later and yet is so much of a downgrade in nearly every way from the Spidey Classics body. Just know that if I die tomorrow, this Urban Legends Spidey was the culprit. But for some of Spidey's heroic allies made by Toybiz, we have the Urban Legends Daredevil on the left, and the Toybiz Marvel Legends Human Torch on the right. Now, this Human Torch was actually made using the Symbiote Spider-Man from Series 1 of Spider-Man Classics, just with a couple new parts. That Symbiote Spider-Man was unsurprisingly basically just the Spider-Man Classics body, just all smoothed out with no carved-in webbing. But for Hasbro's version of the two, we have the Retro Card Daredevil on the left, and the Retro Fantastic 4-Wave Johnny Storm on the right, and a bit of a hot take, but I might actually prefer the Toybiz Human Torch to this more modern one. Sure, you know, he's got the neat translucent plastic, and he's still got the comic lines that this one has, but this feels more like the comic Human Torch to me, you know? But hey, Spidey shares a good bit of history from the Fantastic Four, so let's bring out some of the other members, being Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic on the left, and Sue Storm on the right, both from the retro-carded Fantastic Four-Wave, except with a bit of a repaint to give them their more Jack Kirby looks. And here's the thing. Same story as Reed and Sue. Well, I was about to say, here's two versions of Doctor Doom since we're talking about the Fantastic Four, but it looks like the Secret Wars Doctor Doom on the right doesn't want to stand up. There we go. So here's two versions of Doctor Doom on the left. We have the one from the Cabal 3-pack, and on the right we have Doctor Doom's godlike form from Secret Wars. But hey, Secret Wars also gave us Spidey's Symbiote Black costume. So here's two versions of the guy who inherited it after Peter. On the left, we have Eddie Brock as Venom from the Life Foundation 3-pack, and on the right, we have Eddie Brock as Anti-Venom from Diamond Select Toys. But hey, Venom's more of a hero nowadays. For two more evil symbiotes, we have Carnage on the left, and the Marvel Legends Deluxe Toxin on the right. But hey, let's take a look at some of Spidey's villains, of course. Starting off with two lesser important ones, the retro-carded Rose on the left, and the retro-card Hammerhead on the right.
Fun fact, the Rose is actually the son of Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. And hey, we mentioned him, so we might as well bring him out, the retro-carded Kingpin. This is probably the best Kingpin figure we'll ever get. Let's get to the actual supervillains. On the left, we have the Scorpion, and on the right, we have the Ultimate Vulture from the same 2-pack as that Ultimate Spidey. Let's also bring out the Marvel Legends Doc Ock and Chameleon, since they're very early foes of Spider-Man. But let's also bring out two versions of the Rhino. On the left, we actually have the Rhino from Series 2 of Spider-Man Classics. And on the right, we have the retro-carded Rhino. I think it's undeniable that the retro-carded version was an upgrade in nearly every way. He's not exactly a villain, but J. Jonah Jameson has been a thorn in Spider-Man's side since, well, nearly the beginning. So, here's the version of J. Jonah Jameson from Spider-Man No Way Home. But Spider-Man's arch-enemy is Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. And here's two versions of him. On the left, we have the Toybiz Marvel Legends Onslaught series version, and on the right, we have the Hasbro Marvel Legends Sandman version. I actually really like the way these two look together. But hey, let's do some more Toybiz comparisons, because, well, why not? Here we have the Captain America and Red Skull from Toybiz's Face Off 2-pack series. The Series 1 Marvel Legends Iron Man on the left, and the Giant Man series Ant-Man on the right. Let's also give some of the 2000s Marvel movies some love with Mr. Fantastic on the left, and the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider on the right. Although let's also give some live-action Spidey villains some love with the Toybiz Willem Dafoe Green Goblin on the left, and the Toybiz Alfred Molina Doc Ock on the right. Unfortunately, I don't have the Green Goblin's mask. Also, since I didn't include them in my No Way Home Spidey vs. Renew Your Vows video, here's the final swing No Way Home Spider-Man. Unfortunately, I think he's too large for these two figures. Also, here's Spider-Man with the Toybiz Hulk Classics War Hulk. Also, before I finish the comparisons off, I wanted to include the Hasbro Marvel Legends Classic Doctor Strange, since, like Spidey, he was a creation of Steve Ditko. And as is tradition, here's the Magnetic Spidey with Hitmonkey and Goliath. Now, you might have been asking this, and might have not been, I don't know, I'm not a mind reader, but what I'm wondering is, what does this figure come with? Well, remember how I mentioned he had a display base that he could use his magnets on? Well, it's a really interesting one. This building and windowsill, which has a J. Jonah Jameson sculpted in there, and he's got his face webbed to his phone and some on his hands. I mean, that's just amazing. So I guess I have two plastic versions of J. Jonah Jameson. If I had a third, we could make No J Home, but I don't think the world's ready for that. The bricks have been very nicely sculpted and painted. I mean, like, pull that away and those look like real bricks. It's got peg holes, but this Spider-Man doesn't actually have pegs in the feet. But, you know, if you take, for example, Renew Your Vows Spidey, you can plug him on there. But normal Spidey doesn't need peg holes. Why? He's got magnets, and he'll stick on there, although the magnets are a bit weakened on the base. It's also got this thing right here, which means if you stick a thumbtack in your wall, you can hang this base like a work of art along with the figure. And I mean, that's something that's a bit missed in more modern Marvel Legends. I mean, obviously I'd say the accessories are preferred, but I mean, I think I might pay extra for some kind of base like this to be included with figures. Now, pricing on this guy is pretty cheap. You can find him for between 15 and 20 loose. Unfortunately, though, you won't be getting the display base for that price. In packaging, though, he goes for between 40 and 50, but that's partially to be expected with a figure that's nearly 20 years old and was also, a classic Spider-Man. Even though Humberto Ramos's art isn't my personal thing, I really like this artist-specific head sculpt. I mean, I do really wish Hasbro did this more often, and Toybiz did do this a lot in their Spider-Man toy line. Like, for example, there was the McFarlane Spider-Man, which is the most famous one, but there was also an Alex Ross-styled Spider-Man, and a Spider-Man that was very similar to the 2000s Avengers comic book. I don't know if that one was on purpose, but the resemblance is pretty similar. And this guy is a pretty decent, cheap, classic Spider-Man. Although, if you're looking for a cheap 6-inch classic Spider-Man, well, I do have some slightly better recommendations in my opinion. First off is the Super Strength Spider-Man that I did mention earlier, being the one that's similar to the 2000s Avengers comic run. You can find him for between $25 and $30 if you look hard enough, although there are some pretty expensive listings on eBay. Although a different one I'd recommend that, in my opinion, looks a lot better proportionally since he's less wide, is the Spider-Man Classic Series 2 Amazing Fantasy 15 Spider-Man. Now granted, he isn't red and blue, he's red and black, but still, it's a good, cheap, classic Spider-Man for around $25 or $30. Still, though, there's very few Spider-Man figures that encapsulate Humberto Ramos's art style. There was another one released by Toybiz, and that one's much more accurate to the proportions in his art, but it's less posable than this one. I love this guy for being an artist-specific figure with a really great head sculpt, but I still have my issues. The paint on the upper arms on the red is just way darker for some reason. I don't like the shading on the legs, and also the hands are just kinda awkward looking. I mean, this hand when it's at rest is fine, but when you use the finger articulation, it just looks weird, and honestly, I think it would have looked better without the cut. But this one, I don't know, I just don't imagine Spider-Man going around and just slapping people. Still though, this Spider-Man is something you don't see too often, and the magnets do give him a bit of a leg up. So I'm giving the Toybiz Magnetic Spider-Man an 8 out of 10. To everyone watching this, remember, have a good day, 'cause you deserve it.